Hi,
everyone.
hi. How's everyone doing?
Hi, Emily.
I'm doing good.
Caroline.
Okay, so let's get started. Another community-led workshop today. We have an absolute treat for everyone tonight. Upcoming Artemis launch, we wanted to provide a review of the last lunar landing, but on July 21st, 1969, and critical discussion of some of the more popular moon hoax theories by over the decade. So really fun. But before we get into our programming for the night, I'd like Emily Higgins.
Hey, can you guys hear me? My internet was being very sketchy just now.
Mine was too. But I think
okay.
You said
okay. All right. As long as we are still here. Hey, everyone. I am Emily. I'm the director of Space Plus. For those of you who may be new to the project, Space Plus is the first Web3 space program by Uplift Aerospace, and our mission is to increase access and diversity in space. So we are harnessing the incredible power of artificial reality, virtual reality, NFTs, cryptocurrency, and blockchain technology to increase access and diversity in space. And so to achieve this, we have a wide range of projects at Uplift Aerospace. They're focused around the social, digital, and physical infrastructure to support commerce and culture in space. And tonight is a real pleasure. Without any further ado, we have the privilege of introducing not only Space Plus member, but we actually have Amelia here as a top secret Uplift Aerospace intern. It has been a pleasure to work behind the scenes with Amelia, and I can't wait for everybody to see the initiative that we're going to be launching with her fairly soon. But it's our privilege to have you here tonight. Thanks so much for joining us and picking such an incredible topic, and I will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Emily, for the amazing introduction. I am Amelia Batotti. I was originally part of the community until I became an intern and had the opportunity to be involved on this team. I am currently working on a top secret project that is coming out soon, so please stay tuned. And I am thrilled to be a member of the Uplift Aerospace team, as I learn more every day and get to be around these amazing people. So, yeah.
I think that's one of the really cool things about this community is, there's so many people that are interested in participating, and we get to work really, really closely with community members as colleagues. And that is a unique aspect in this space for sure. So Amelia, it's a unique topic that you chose tonight. Everyone's extremely excited because we have all heard like moon hoax theories from 1969, our whole lives. And much like many of the population, Caroline and I do not have a physics or aerospace background traditionally. So we are just incredibly excited to learn from you tonight. Why did you choose this topic?
I chose this topic for a multitude of reasons. It's something that I've been researching here at my university, Elon University, as an astrophysics student. But I believe that the moon hoax theories that are about to be shown in this slideshow are a prime example of how a mission so successful that it altered society and changed the world could have such a high amount of misconceptions and misinformation spread globally. I believe that it is important to use Apollo 11, the mission itself, as an example of how we can learn from harmful hoax theories and their impact on society. Also we can learn more about the war on objective truth that surrounds science on a daily basis and even in world-altering events.
Yeah, and this is extremely timely with the Artemis launch coming up in a few days, and we can get into that discussion later. So without any more delay, we're all so excited. Amelia, I will let you take it away.
Alrighty. Well, moon hoax theories and their confabulation. So our goal for today is that we are going to consider some of the most substantial evidence brought forth by prominent conspiracy theorists and dive into the validity of these arguments themselves and assess their impact on society. So to start off, we'll give a little preview of what were the main theories that we're going to be going over today. So our first is no stars shown in astronaut photos. Our second will be surviving radiation in space. Our third will be dust on the moon's surface. Our fourth, surviving extreme temperatures on the lunar surface. And our fifth, tricks of light and shadow. So I want to give some background information and a setting for everyone. I'm very visual, like to picture the scene. So I want us all to picture that it's July 20th, 1969. A family of three sits around their TV, popcorn in hand. They watch, eyes glued to the screen, as history is made. They are one in 53 million family households out of 650 million viewers worldwide. They watch as one small step for man and a giant leap for mankind takes place. The Apollo 11 mission was celebrated by millions. So the large-scale media coverage of this life-altering achievement managed to grab the world's attention. It was also a distraction from the Vietnam War and, the heat of the worldwide space race. This event offered celebratory release and a proud moment of American Western human and technological development and advancement. It was prominent in films and still is in films and television, ranging from The Big Bang Theory to First Man. The moon landing continues to powerfully shape representation of humanity, space, the world, and the universe as we know it. The Apollo 11 mission transformed our understanding of our own planet, and it was a turning point for planetary science. The samples that have been collected have powered 50 years of science and continue to be worked on to this day. This was not just an American triumph, but a sign that all people, no matter their nation, faith, or race, are inhabitants of the same wonder-filled planet. Public opinion polls to this day have shown that 5 to 6% of Americans believed this mission was faked. So, our first theory, no visible stars in moon landing photos, some of the famous ones that we have come to love so dearly. Next slide. Oh. Next slide, please. My connection might be breaking up. We'll see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Emily.
Oh, that's okay. That's all
Can
right.
you share from your Amelia? We did not prepare for this tech.
No, that's okay. I don't believe I can, actually.
I don't see anything on my end either.
Well, technological difficulties tend to happen the worst
Yes.
times. That's all right.
Yeah.
Hopefully she can pop back on soon. Till then, it's just you and me.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about a little more
The
background? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have the photos in front of us for us all to see. But just think of some of the famous photos that you have seen from the Apollo 11 mission. And the stars are simply too faint to be seen in the photos, and that's the simple and quick, easy answer for the theory itself. Unlike the Earth, the moon has no atmosphere. So without air, the daytime appears black. Therefore, long exposure is required to see the stars and would overexpose everything else in the frame. You can actually do DIY experiments yourself to test and experiment this theory. Such as using the same exposure settings used on the moon and that the astronauts used with their cameras, and even then, you will not see stars. So,
and to kind of like build on that as well is my husband, he and even like down on Earth, right? If he friend objects and to get the stars in the background and things like that, like you need to hire a bunch of different pictures on top of each other, and each one has its. So like to get the pictures that he creates with the like the beautiful galaxy, he can't have any like you can't see anything in the foreground. He has to like take a picture of what he wants in the foreground with some lighting, then take a picture and then layer it together. So it's really hard to have to do everything that you want in a photo.
Yeah, and just think about it back in 1969. I mean, technology wasn't nearly as advanced as it is now. So things were a little more, let's try to get a picture of our astronauts. That's the main priority. And maybe next time we go up to the moon, we can get some pictures of the stars just to further clarify our point, Emphasize that a little bit.
Yeah.
Hi, Emily. Can you hear us? Maybe. Oh. Well, we don't have any slides, but I will continue on explaining the theory. So picture one of the astronauts with the American flag. In this photo that you're picturing in your mind, you will see the moon landscape, the flag, and then an astronaut, right? And then he's bright, he's white, glowing from the suit, and then in the background is all black. Astronauts in their white spacesuits appear, as we can see, very bright. And because of their brightness, the cameras that they had to use shorter shutter speeds and long f-stops to make sure to not overexpose the photos. And with these settings, the stars don't show up. Taking a picture in the dark, one would use a flash, which then it results in no stars being shown in the resulting photo. So making the stars visible in the photos requires long exposure and will result in the subject of the photo being blurry. And as we know, the point was to see astronauts on the moon and not necessarily the stars.
Oh, hey. How's it going?
It's going great.
Yeah, my internet completely kicked out. I am so sorry.
It's okay. No worries.
The band's all back together here now. Here's your visuals.
Yes. So now we can see the photo that I was. Yay. Awesome.
So anything you'd like to reiterate, just let me know what slide you'd like to pick up on. Sorry about that, Amelia.
No, this is perfect. So as you can see, there's no stars, and we can go to the next slide.
Thank you.
And this is the photo that I was just describing, which I don't think I described very well, but I tried my best. Astronaut flag and no stars in the background. So as you can see, he's very bright. And the stars are not showing up due to shorter shutter speeds and long f-stops. And as I'm going to say once again, the point was to see the astronaut and not the stars.
Right. It's the camera tech.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Do we want to pause here for a couple questions, or did you guys do that while I was lost in space?
No, I would love some questions.
So just to, I guess, maybe like reiterate or ask a clarifying question. So if you were on the moon and you want to do some astrophotography, you would simply just have to adjust your settings in order to see the stars. Is that like all it is?
Yes, and with the right aperture, exposure speed, and other settings, it is possible. The moon is very reflective, so it does make it a little more difficult. There is not as reflective, but it is very possible to take some beautiful pictures off the surface of the moon.
For another time, maybe a retirement hobby.
Yeah. I'd like to go up there and take some pictures myself at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Caroline, do you have any questions before we go on?
So, can we ask stars can only be seen with atmosphere? Can you talk a little bit more on that specifically?
Yeah, so astronauts, while on the moon, used film cameras that were not designed to take pictures of the stars. Lens aperture, shutter speed, and exposure all played part in the pictures that were taken on the moon. And the settings on the camera were actually put in place to take pictures of the astronauts themselves and not the dim stars behind them. So, therefore, just like the Earth, the stars are visible from the lunar surface, but sunlight makes them harder to see. So, yeah.
And that makes sense to me.
I feel like it's pretty explanatory, But yeah. So I am ready to move on to our second theory. Can you hear me, Caroline?
Yes. Did Emily drop off again?
I think so. Yeah, she might have.
Amelia, so sorry. Well,
Okay.
It's okay. We'll just keep going. The next one is surviving radiation in space, right?
Right, and this is actually, we don't need many visuals for this. It's quite scientific, so
Perfect.
we can just jump right to it. So an avid theory that the moon hoax theorists seem to latch onto is that the Apollo astronauts could have never survived their trip through two belts of extreme radiation, partially surrounding Earth. Humans, we can survive certain types of radiation, such as heat and light, and when traveling in space, technology allows for protection against stronger types of, such as, X-rays, gamma rays, and radio waves. However, when high energy radiation, when we have those encounters, they're ionizing radiations, so they can cause extreme changes to the human body, which is never good. It's never what we want, ever. Absolutely not. So, just to get a little more scientific and some background for us, Earth protects us from multiple ionizing radiations. The Earth has magnetic fields that create a magnetosphere that pushes most dangerous radiation types away. And those that are able to slip through that wall, they're absorbed into Earth's thick atmosphere. So, however, above the Earth's protective magnetosphere, there are two regions that trap energetic subatomic particles, and these regions are called the Van Allen belts. So the aluminum outer shell of the Apollo spacecraft offered some protection, but also the timing of the missions itself were quite significant due to the mission coinciding with the solar cycle, which is basically the periodic waning and waxing of activity that occurs every 11 years. So, the solar activity results in the sun's magnetic field that surrounds the solar system being increased, resulting in an umbrella that protects the Earth, the moon, and solar system from galactic rays that then lessen the dosation that the astronauts received. So, an interview with Professor Van Allen, who the belts are named after, and he was a scientist devoted to the magnetospheric research, was conducted about these claims. Allen explained that the engineers at NASA were worried about the radiation, as we would have thought. To minimize risks, Apollo 11 was put along a trajectory to hit the very inside of the inner belt and spend more time in the outer belt, where the radiation isn't as high.
That's fantastic.
They really thought it out. They really planned well for that, because radiation is always going to be one of those invisible issues that we have to account for when these missions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm back. Hi.
Hi. I love to see you.
I really hope this doesn't become like a pattern with every topic. So I guess I'm wondering, like, was their exposure to radiation still quite high? Like, how high would their exposure have been even with the precautions, or is it sort of negligible?
It's negligible. The Apollo spacecraft had an aluminum hull, which blocked some radiation, not all. So that was very helpful. Suits they wore helped block some radiation, again, not all. The astronauts knew that they were going to be exposed to, and that was kind of inevitable when it comes to the radiation. Yeah.
They knew about it because of science.
Right. Yeah. And research, which, yeah.
Science and research. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I will let Caroline ask some questions.
So this is really great timing back to the moon. And would love to know, like, some tech or spacesuit tech improvement that have changed since 1969, and like coming Artemis lunar landing be much different.
Yeah, so when it comes to spacesuit tech, between 1969 and now, the spacesuits used to walk in 1969 are almost very, very similar as to the ones that are being used now, with slight moderations. And one of those is the extravehicular mobility unit, which allows astronauts to work outside of their spacecraft, as well as having more updated technology such as hand movements and overall mobility being easier. They also now have 14 layers of protection, with the exception of rubber, which now they use polyurethane. So that's been a large improvement when it comes to their suits. And SpaceX is currently working on more designs, which I'm very excited to see when those are available. I'm sure they're going to be very, very cool. So
yeah, this is something we've chatted quite a bit about with Trent, one of the Space Plus 5, because he does a lot of work with spacesuit, like operational spacesuit development. And it is sort of amazing that the spacesuit designs, like surface suits, have not changed that much since 1969. But I'm also curious, so aside from radiation, one of the other very deadly things that you have to worry about when walking on the moon are like micrometeoroids and flying projectiles. Can you talk a little bit about how the astronauts are protected from those as well?
Yeah, so they wore these A7L pressure suits, which were actually equivalent to miniature spacecrafts. So each suit was, equipped with thermal insulation to protect the astronauts from extremely hot and cold temperatures. And the outer layer of the suit itself was protected from radiation, helped protect from radiation and micrometeoroids, which could puncture those suits. So these micrometeoroids, if I remember correctly, are sharp as glass, so they can puncture the suits, get into the lunar module itself, and really just cause a lot of destruction internally. So that had to be regulated when it came to those sort of things. When it comes to not on the moon itself, but space debris in general, micrometeoroids are really the only hazard on the moon when it comes to that sort of thing. They can, yeah.
That's so compelling. You had mentioned earlier that the Apollo spacecraft had an aluminum hull, which blocks some radiation. How common are these micrometeoroids and other flying projectiles?
I believe that there are about on Earth 30,000 tons that come to Earth of micrometeoroids.
Wow.
So quite common, even more so in space. And flying projectiles range from not just around the moon, but from space debris to just natural full-size meteorites. 30,000 tons.
In what length of time? Like, is that like per year?
Per year. Yep.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. But of course, they would burn up in the atmosphere, right? For us.
Sometimes, not always. I've seen pictures of them being on fingertips. They're very, very small, right? Like little black dots. But it was like made me think. I'm like, oh, like if I ever get something stuck in my eye, like is it a micrometeorite? Like I don't know,
Yeah. Could be. Yeah. All right. Do we want to move on to number 3?
Absolutely.
Before my internet dies again.
It's getting stuck in your eye. Dust on the moon's surface.
I would prefer that, honestly, but I'm not really. But we'll get into why I wouldn't really prefer that in a second. So yeah, dust on the moon's surface, and we'll dive into this. So here we have a beautiful picture of the LEM and an astronaut. It's beautiful. So theorists have observed that when the lunar module descended onto the moon's surface, there was no scattered dust or crater left on the moon from the rocket blast that slowed the module's descent. So when explained further and when research is done, for the most of the astronauts' trip, they traveled horizontally. So the thrusters were not actually pointed down when the module was slowing its descent until it actually finally landed and did touchdown on the surface. And in clips, you can actually see dust being thrown up. So certain clips, you can see that. Next slide.
This is
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. So the misunderstanding of the dust properties leads to the breakdown of the hoax claim that the lunar lander should have left a crater on the moon with the 10,000 pounds of thrust that it had. So, however, 10,000 pounds of thrust was the lander's maximum, which was used to slow down its descent quickly. By the time the astronauts landed, the thrust was at 30% of its maximum. So it was not nearly as strong enough to make a crater on the moon. Also, the moon's gravity is about 1/6 of Earth's, making for a far more gentle landing. So yeah. Do you have any questions?
Always. So tell us a little bit more about the properties of lunar dust. You said you wouldn't want to get it in your eye. Can you elaborate on that and why?
Absolutely. So this is one of the main reasons, but inside the lunar module, the moon dust was known to have and recorded to have smelled like gunpowder, which that's the first reason I don't want that in my eye. It also caused nasal congestion and saying that in some cases took days to disappear. So that's quite extreme, I feel like. Extreme allergies. So lunar dust has silicate as one of its properties, which is known to have caused lung damage, as well as eating away layers of spacesuit boots and destroying vacuum seals within Apollo sample containers. So it's a fine powder, but it's sharp like glass. It's also electrically charged, causing it to levitate above the moon's surface, which I just think is so fascinating. Just being in a
Oh
lunar,
my gosh.
like just to walk on the moon and just see that is just, it must be amazing. So
I didn't even know that was a
I
thing.
know, isn't it crazy? I learned it while doing research. I was like, I never knew that it was electrically charged. That's highly interesting.
So how high would it levitate? Like, because from these, I mean, obviously these are still photos, so it would be very hard to even see from these photos. But what would it look like sort of to the naked eye if you were looking at it? Could you see it, or is it sort of like at the micro level?
I would say that it is at the micro level. It's just something that we can't, I don't know if we would actually be able to see, because I don't think the electricity is that strong. But I'd have to do further research on that. That's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
We can ask the when they come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I never knew that the dust was sharp like glass. I had always thought it to be soft and powdery. I always just looked at the moon and I was like, oh, it just must be so soft. But then I realized with no atmosphere, there's no climate. There's nothing to erode or help shape fine powder like there is here on Earth, that allows for that softness to be achieved. So therefore, it just stays sharp all the time, which is very
glass dust moving around everywhere.
yeah. Don't want to hold that in my hand. I'm good on that.
So at Uplift, we have a bunch of simulated lunar regolith because of our Lunacrete development. And when we go to conferences and do talks and stuff, we bring our Lunacrete samples, but we also bring like bags of regolith, and you can play with it. And it is sort of soft to the touch, but it definitely makes you sneeze 100%. And it's a simulant. It makes you like sneeze and cough for sure. And it's impossible to get off. Like it just sticks to you all day. So we tell people like probably don't touch it because they often think it's like a little Zen garden and they like to play in it. But then it's stuck forever. Yeah, forever.
It's not a Zen garden. Garden.
It's a Zen garden of glass shards.
That will make you sneeze for days.
Yeah.
The opposite of relaxing.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, diving into the next one. So, surviving the extreme temperatures of the lunar surface. As we can see here on the next slide, we have one of the most famous pictures. I love it. Beautiful. So a day on the moon is 21 weeks long, which is just wow. With 2 weeks of sun and an equal amount of nighttime. It's almost as if engineers planned for this and planned the missions to take place during the morning. It was like, oh, like maybe we should plan it for when the sun isn't scorching and have our anyways. So that in every photo that you can see taken on the moon, the shadows are long, showing that the sun is low in the sky. And the suits were also designed to keep the astronauts cool. A common theory is that they would have died. The suits would have not been able to protect them from the extreme heat and the extreme cool that they would have been up against. And for example, these temperatures range from 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius, and negative 279 degrees Fahrenheit, and negative 173 degrees Celsius. So they're like, oh,
crazy.
These astronauts will die. You know, like they're like, these astronauts will absolutely die. But the astronauts did not die. They struggled more with their internal heat, their own body heat, than they did externally. So I think that's quite the suits were heavily insulated. So just a fun little fact there. Yeah, questions?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Always. So we've heard about solar flares, and I'm curious if solar flares have a large effect on the temperature on the moon, and if that would have been a concern for them.
Yeah, so they do. They do have a large effect. Solar storms, such as sunstorms and solar plasma eruptions, can blast a large amount of material off the surface of the moon and erode its surface. So it does. All the missions planned have to be planned around solar flares from the sun. Be very, very, very dangerous to send anyone up during. And these are predictable now. We have technology to predict when the sun is going to act up a little bit. Yeah.
Like having a bad Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a bad Sunday. I like that.
Oh no.
So there's like a huge fluctuation. Like it's so extreme. Why is that? And what kind of technology, magic spacesuits to mitigate this? Like that is so fascinating.
Yeah. So the reason for these extremes is that the moon has it has no atmosphere to insulate heat. So thus the temperature fluctuates far more rapidly. And the beautiful craters that are found on the surface of the moon do not erode the way they would on Earth due to climate. So they are home to the moon's coldest of temperatures. And so the suits were very insulated to the point that the astronauts suffered more from their own body heat than the harsh climate of the moon. And the astronauts also planned their walks during periods of the day where the temperatures were more moderate as the moon could get. And, all the walks were planned for lunar dawn to ensure that the surface of the moon hadn't had time to heat up to its daylight temperature. Because once it was at its daylight temperature, it wasn't as safe to go out, or you really couldn't go out.
So, that's
incredible.
Yeah.
Science guy.
It's quite complicated.
Yes.
The schedules that they were on and the planning that had to be done to avoid solar flares and to when it was safe to leave the module and everything that went into it. It's very impressive.
Amazing. I can't wait to see the schedule for Artemis and see the process of their day to day and how that compares. I imagine the considerations for time of day and time of year are going to be very similar for this upcoming mission. But anyway, we're going to have an Artemis party coming up very soon.
I would love that.
Yes.
Party.
Are we ready for our final theory?
Yes, we are.
Perfect.
All right. So tricks of light and shadow. On our next slide, we have a beautiful picture of the serene moon. She's beautiful. A popular claim used by moon hoax theorists is that the angle and colors of shadows are inconsistent and suggests that there are more than one source of light being used, which leads to the assumption that the whole mission is a farce and was filmed in a Hollywood studio, supposedly in Nevada. This claim involving it's very, I was like, wow, we're pushing the limits, but I guess.
I mean, it's very logical if you don't know the science behind the lighting. So we'll let you tell us about the science behind the lighting now.
Yeah, so it's very simple. The simple answer for this, for the parallel shadows, is that it's just moon topography. So the lunar surface is covered in many craters, bumps, and hills, along with, and it's all illuminated by the main light source, the sun. And our sun illuminates the landscape. But there are also other small contributors of light besides the sun's direct rays that include light reflected off the moon's surface and light that is reflected off the Earth's surface. So these multiple light sources cause the inconsistencies that are shown in the photos, as well as the wide-angled cameras that astronauts also used, contributing to these distortions since we were in 1969.
Yeah, no,
So, yeah,
there's food.
Right. That's incredible. People say there has to be more than one source of light. And you're like, yes, there is. Let me tell you. Let me tell you about what those sources are.
yeah.
So I wouldn't have known that the Earth is a significant source of light. Can you tell us why that is?
So the moon shines because its surface reflects the light from the sun, and it can appear very bright at times. However, it only reflects 3 to 12% of the light that hits it. So when it comes to Earth, the Earth itself actually reflects 37% of light that shines on it.
Oh,
So
Is that because of the atmosphere?
because of the atmosphere, angle of the sun, and other
Like
small
the oceans?
contributors. I don't know about the moon itself has color, and I believe that has something to attribute to that. But the oceans, I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to do more research on that. But
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough.
Mhm.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that all makes sense. When you explain the science behind all five, it's like, oh, yeah, those are very, very proper logical answers to all of these claims.
Mhm.
And I think that brings us kind of circling back around to a larger discussion about some of the challenges that are faced with like conspiracy theorists moving forward. This is now the second lunar mission that we're doing with Artemis. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that they're facing and having to mitigate? I know it's only like 5 to 7% of the population, but that's still significant. That's a lot of people.
I was about to say it's more than I would be comfortable with. So I believe that the original theories thrived in a time period, when the original missions took place. They thrived due to the technology, the economy, society, as well as world events back then that were taking place. But now in this day and age, I believe that the Artemis missions will face the same threats, but in a more modern sense. It'll be in different ways, possibly more harmful, possibly less. They can probably be handled better. They will, I hope, be handled better than they were back in 1969. But I believe that the first missions were a lesson and, to the world and to NASA to see how people would react to such a world altering event. And I believe NASA is prepared to combat, again, the constant war against truth even better now, even more so.
Yeah, their science communication is excellent. And I think also their visual storytelling and like media capturing that they do. I mean, just even looking at the James Webb Telescope and the storytelling that they did around that and their dedication to depicting this like space and the galaxy and where we are in space. I think that is a major initiative that they do, and hopefully one for Artemis as well.
They do an excellent job with that. And I believe they're very passionate about educating all people. And we have even more technology and ability to do that now than we did back then. And so I have faith that it will be received better now than it was then.
Yeah, and I think what's like really, and just like the Apollo missions, was it was a moment for all of humanity, for America, right? And like that's one of the reasons these lunar missions and education and communication about them are so important to us, space exploration as a whole.
I agree.
All right. And I guess sort of we are running up on time a little bit and we want to leave a bit of time in case there are any questions coming across from the Discord or from Twitter. But last question from us. Do you think that the conspiracy theories that we outlined here today, do you think that they played a role in how long it's been since we've been to the moon? Or do you think there were mostly other factors in play?
I don't believe that the theories themselves have played a role in the missions coming to a standstill. I think they more so open the eyes to the road that lies ahead when it comes to large scientific endeavors. I think other factors played into that standstill.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe some funding factors, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And Caroline, I know you've got your eye on Discord. Do you see any community questions for Amelia?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good. I see one for Amelia. What are you most looking forward to with the upcoming Artemis mission?
I am looking forward to. I need to do more research on the Artemis missions themselves. I do not believe that they're doing a test run, I believe, test route. I am excited for later Artemis missions to watch it all happen. I hear about it. I heard about it. I've done research about all the people who watched it happen, the missions, who watched people walk on the moon. I myself am selfish, and I want to see it with my own eyes. I think it'll just be so inspiring, and I'm excited that we are taking first steps to watch it unfold. We're on the road, I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, and I think we are, and this is something we talk about every day with Space Plus and with Uplift, providing access and increasing diversity and inclusion in space is so important for humanity as we move forward. And where Artemis has the first woman and the first person of color that are going to be on the moon, I think that is just an incredible symbol for where we're going with humanity in space moving forward. And it's an excellent step forward for all humankind.
Well, human space explorations as a whole helps us answer the fundamental questions we have relating to our place in the known universe, as well as the history of our solar system. So we as humans, we have a natural drive to explore the unknown and other worlds, as well, as expand our growing collection of knowledge as a whole. That's why we explore in the first place. We're curious creatures. And I think these missions, especially these upcoming missions, are going to open the doors to diving even deeper into, accepting the challenges of space travel and diving even deeper into like the door that opens for future scientists and, for people today and generations to come on this journey.
Mm-hmm. And humans becoming a multiplanetary species, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Any final questions, Caroline, before we wrap up?
Where do you think the dinosaurs are on the moon on this mission?
Like dinosaurs on Earth?
Perfect.
Sorry. That's like a running joke, and there's dinosaurs on the moon.
Oh.
That's a conspiracy theory for another day.
Yeah.
Your face was priceless, though.
Wait.
Oh my gosh. We've almost got Caroline convinced that they're on the dark side of the moon. They're just hiding.
They're plotting.
They're on the moon in our metaverse.
They better be on the moon in the metaverse. I expect that now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've got T-Rexes and all kinds of stuff. All right, everybody. Well, it is almost at the hour. Amelia, we are so grateful for you putting together this presentation. It was a super enlightening topic, very, very timely with the Artemis missions kicking off in, I think, a week and a half now on the 29th there. And we are just so excited, not only for are watching the Artemis mission, but also our upcoming community workshops. It's members like you that we love learning from. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everyone watching. We will tune in with you on another workshop next week. Stay tuned for that topic.
Yes, and also want to take this moment to encourage everyone that if you want to community something really awesome and cool, we would love for you to series. So send us a DM, send us an email, get in contact. We're just so excited to amplify what our incredible community is working.
Pow, pow, pow. Absolutely. All right, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you so much, Amelia.
Thank you.
Bye.